Welcome again to another episode today. And as usual, I really appreciate you taking the time to join here today and get to learn about life and work and balance. And today we want to look at a leader's guide to human nature. Because in the office, mostly we work with people, and to understand people, you will become a better leader if you are a manager, supervisor at work. And this episode is going to focus on 3 things that you can do to be a better leader, and it is derived on understanding human nature. So we've heard this statement before, we've heard something near this statement, that I find most people I work with to be selfish, to be cold, and no one really cares how you're doing. Yes, this feeling of disillusionment, it's so common at the current workplaces. Now, if you're new to this channel, welcome. But if you're not new, you probably remember me talking about an episode on why everyone hates you in the office. If you have not done that, please go back and watch it. Why everyone hates you in the office and what you should do about that. However, today, central to this episode is how, as leaders, can we ensure that we are better leaders by understanding human beings? And it starts by asking ourselves that, are you leading a team of people who care, partners who you work with, or is it a collection of selfish, interested individuals? And how you answer this question will determine or define success or failure in your case. So before we talk about these 3 things, let me create a base building on this topic, where do we really understand human nature? And if yes, how can we utilize that to define a failure and success? Now, if you're feeling that most people in the office don't care, they are selfish, they're interested in themselves, that is okay. Why do you feel this way? There's a psychological reason. Because our brain has an unfair accounting, a framework entailing it. And there are 2 of them. One is something you've heard commonly said in various forums, or you've read about it. It's the negativity bias, where our brains are hardwired to focus on threats and negative experiences. So in the case in an office, one backstabbing colleague will occupy more mental space than if you had 9 supportive ones. So that one negative comment from your supervisor, one negative comment from the CEO or MD of a company can linger in your head for years, so sometimes months, sometimes weeks, than a positive one. So the other thing that makes our brain focus more on people are being terrible, or they care about themselves so much at the workplace, is what we call the personalization problem, where some people are just naturally bad because they lack self-esteem, or they lack boundaries, and therefore this is the tiny 1% that is available or can be available in your workplace, and they can create an environment where even as a leader you might feel like you're failing or you're not doing your job very well. The lesson here is that for you to understand that our personal vulnerabilities, how we feel, how our brain is wired, can color our entire perception of our professional environment, which can lead us to making personal patterns becoming universal truths. And our brain is very, very good at that. So before we talk about these three things, I want to introduce a realist example where you're looking at human beings from a moral judgment, but you're based on the biological understanding who a human being is. And in this case, I'm introducing something called the Grizzly Bear analogy. You probably heard of it, but if you've not heard of it, is that the problem isn't that a grizzly bear is evil. The problem is it is for it to be cuddly. Because when you look at a bear, even so, growing up, you used to have these tiny toys of a bear, and they are so sweet to cuddle, huge. So when you look at a bear, you're thinking, that is a very sweet animal. I think it needs to be cuddly. Not knowing that by its nature, it can tear you into pieces quickly. Start eating you from the most sweetest, softest part, your intestines. Therefore, if you look at human nature that way, then you'll come to understand that selfishness and greediness at the workplace in the modern office is not a moral failing, but it's mostly a survival instinct. And this is purely because of the scarcity mindset that ingrained in us as human beings for millions and thousands of years as we're trying to manage our survival and reproduction process. So it's ingrained in us to be this way. So once you understand this truth, that there's always that one person who can be the most annoying and ruin the team, I know that everyone's first instinct is to get rid of them. But I am changing how you think and how you will interact with such a person, because you now understand human nature. Now, the most effective leaders don't waste energy being disappointed by this. They aren't idealists or cynics, they are realists. And they understand that self-interest is the baseline operating system for most people. So instead of fighting that, they channel it. And great systems don't depend on altruism. They align individual self-interests with organizational goals. Therefore, a well-designed commission plan, a clear path to promotion, a public recognition of teams that are doing so well will harness this energy, this process, rather than condemn that self-interest. So you essentially taking that problematic stuff and creating an opportunity for them to feel they are not part of the team, they need to work with the team, or understanding that he or she is trying to survive in an environment that his nature can only thrive. And the nature is you are greedy, you're selfish, and you're trying to survive and reproduce. Okay? So, what are the three things you can do? Because now you've understood human nature to add this grizzly bear, this human nature. Strategy number one is to understand why. Now, as a leader, shift from judging behavior to diagnosing motivation. Before you can lead someone, you must understand what drives them. What are their fears? What are their ambitions? What incentivizes them? The essence of moving from believing in people to understanding the people is the strategy here. Understand that quote-unquote horrible staff member within your team, what is motivating them. Okay. Number two, model and enforce boundaries. That is strategy number two. So as a leader, you own professional boundaries. Teach the entire team how they're going to interact with you. Okay. And it's not about what you tell them. It's about how you behave. A good example is by shutting down any gossip, protecting your time, or addressing any manipulative behavior within the team will create something in your team where there will be a culture of kindness and trusting. And they will understand that you're there to support them and not to create an environment where they are exploited for what they're trying to do. It's for them to know that these are the expectations of me as your leader, and you model that behavior. You don't go around talking about, you should submit your work on time, you should do this, but yourself, when it's an opportunity for you to do that, back the team, you don't. You need to model that. Strategy number 3 is build a campfire. Campfire in quotes. Now, the evolutionary reaction to how we deal with people or how people react to the environment also creates an opportunity here. Because whether, as much as we're individualistic, we survived as groups, and that is ingrained in us. So it feels good to be part of a group. While we have these selfish instincts, we also have instincts for cooperating with one another and belonging. So your job as a leader is to build a campfire. Campfire in quotes here is this popular term you've heard, psychological safety. Okay? Another thing you need to do is to have a shared purpose and also mutual respect. Before we move, a psychological safety, in this case, I'll define it as a deliberate creation. Very, very important. You deliberately creating an environment where they feel unthreatened. Okay? They feel safe to speak up, take risks, collaborate. You are essentially giving them an antidote to the fear that drives selfishness. That's it. That defensive behavior now, it's broken down. Okay? Now, the campfire makes the team feel safer and stronger together. And this idea of a campfire creates better angels of who we are as human beings, better angels of our nature. So 3 things you need to do as a leader to have the grizzly bear, the human nature, that disturbing, terrible one colleague in your mind, is to understand what motivates them, why they do what they do, model and enforce the boundaries, then also build a campfire around that. So today's episode will end by saying that leading people does not require you to believe that everyone is good. It requires you to understand that everyone is human. And the most inspiring and effective leaders don't ignore the grizzly bear within. They respect his power, it needs, and they also build on that environment where it feels safe to cooperate. Until next time, hope today's lesson will help you improve your leadership skills or your managerial style. And I do wish you all the best. Thank you.